All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's session, Quickly Discover and Use Third-Party Data APIs in the Cloud. I'm Claire O'Brien, member of the Business Development Team for AWS Data Exchange, and I'll be joined on stage shortly by Riccardo Pellegrini, Head of Product for AWS Data Exchange, and by Gopal Ramamurthy, Vice President, Analytics and Global Data Management at Vyaire Medical. Let me walk you quickly through our session agenda. I'll kick it off with a brief overview of the AWS Data Exchange service, and then turn it over to Ricky, who will be doing a deep dive on AWS Data Exchange's most recent feature launch, AWS Data Exchange for APIs. We'll follow Ricky with a quick demo from our partners at Rearc so that you can see what the service looks like in practice. And then finally, we'll have Gopal take the stage to talk about how and why he, as a customer, is planning to use AWS Data Exchange for APIs in his organization. Just quickly, before I jump in, just wanted a quick show of hands from those of you that are scattered throughout the room. Who here is familiar with AWS Data Exchange? Okay, so a few folks, hopefully, both the folks new to the service and folks who know the service well find this useful. So AWS Data Exchange. AWS Data Exchange is about making it easy to find, subscribe to, and use third-party data on AWS. We make it easy to find third-party data by bringing different data providers together in one place for subscribers to discover data sources. We make it easier to subscribe to third-party data by removing friction in the entitlement and procurement process of third-party data. And lastly, we make it easier to use third-party data on AWS by making third-party data available natively in AWS services. So a little more about one place to find third-party data. AWS Data Exchange has a web-based catalog with thousands of data products from over 200 data providers, including industry-leading names such as Experian, Acxiom, and FactSet, and from new emerging data providers such as Revelio Labs and PredictHQ. Customers of third-party data products can come to the AWS Data Exchange catalog and find the data products they need by filtering using the catalog filters or by searching through the catalog. Let me talk about how we make subscribing to third-party data easier. With AWS Data Exchange's entitlement technology, data providers can give their subscribers access to their AWS Data Exchange products with a few clicks in the AWS Data Exchange console, quickly getting the data into the hands of their customers. For data subscribers, procuring data products through AWS Data Exchange means that they are billed through AWS, so that their procurement teams no longer need to deal with the onboarding and billing related to new data vendors, which we hope accelerates the procurement for data customers. And then finally, in the AWS Data Exchange console, both data providers and data subscribers can see their products that they're either providing to or subscribing to, in addition to the related subscriptions and data contracts. This means that both organizations have a single pane of glass to manage the data products that they use. Finally, making it easier to use third-party data products on AWS. Until today, data products from AWS Data Exchange were available in two formats, either as S3-based files or as tables queryable through Amazon Redshift. Obviously, S3 and Redshift, both AWS services that are intuitive and easy to use with downstream AWS services that we see our customers using. In addition, customers can also use these data products in AWS Data Exchange integrated partner services, such as the ones listed on these slides. So, AWS Data Exchange launched back in 2019. And since then, you can see from this slide and this timeline, the Data Exchange team has consistently launched features and made changes to the service in response to our customers' asks and our customers' needs. And you, as some current customers of AWS Data Exchange, hopefully a few future customers of AWS Data Exchange out here, you can expect that the AWS Data Exchange team will continue to listen to our customers and launch the features that you need. So with that, I'll bring Ricky, head of product for AWS Data Exchange, up on stage, and he'll do a deep dive on AWS Data Exchange for APIs, our newest feature on AWS Data Exchange.
Awesome. All right. Can folks hear me? Good? Cool. All right. Is everyone having a good reInvent? No, it's a late session, so thank you all for being here. Excited today to talk to you about AWS Data Exchange for APIs. So AWS Data Exchange for APIs is a new feature on AWS Data Exchange that makes it easy to find, subscribe to, and use third-party APIs in the cloud. And you'll hear this often said a lot at AWS, but we like to build what our customers ask for. And so when it came to third-party APIs, we heard from data subscribers that it was hard to find the right APIs for their organization. We heard that it was difficult to manage API subscriptions across multiple API vendors. And last but certainly not least, we heard that as a developer, it can take significant time and effort to figure out how to actually use these APIs, whether that's figuring out how to structure an API call or authenticate in. And often, it's without the help of an SDK. So that's on the data subscriber side. Now, data providers also had some pain points. Data providers want to reach more customers with their APIs. They also want to have reduced friction when it comes to managing subscriptions and entitlements. And last but certainly not least, these data providers really want to make it easy for their customers to actually use their APIs. So to address these pain points, we built AWS Data Exchange for APIs, which again makes it easy to find, subscribe to, and use third-party APIs in the cloud. So we're going to go through a little bit of how it works here. And what you see here is a diagram. It's a high-level diagram of AWS Data Exchange for APIs. So as a data subscriber, once you've successfully subscribed to a product on the AWS Data Exchange catalog that contains an API, and again, that was from the catalog that Claire showed earlier, you'll be able to make API calls. So you'll get a page that has all the information necessary to make and structure an API call. So you'll make that call to an AWS Data Exchange managed endpoint. We will authenticate that on behalf of the provider, and then pass that request along, which the provider will then take, process, and return a response, which we will then forward back to the data subscriber. So again, to summarize on that, that is the basics of a synchronous request-response API flow between a data subscriber and a data provider on AWS Data Exchange for APIs. Now, two things to call out. The first is that as a data subscriber, you can use your AWS credentials and the AWS SDK to authenticate into these APIs. So I want to pause there for a second, because that's pretty cool. What you've just been able to do by making a call to an AWS Data Exchange API, or excuse me, an AWS Data Exchange API, which will then go to a third-party provider, is that you have just made that API call in the same way you would call a regular AWS API, but you've requested third-party data. So again, across a multitude of data providers, that should save significant time and effort when it comes to figuring out how to authenticate in. So that's the first thing, is the easy authentication using your AWS credentials or the AWS SDK. The second thing to call out is that on behalf of data providers, AWS Data Exchange is doing the authentication in accordance with subscription terms. So let's say you have a data subscriber that's on a 12-month subscription, and they make an API call in month 13. We, of course, will not forward that request along to the data provider because it is outside of the subscription timeframe. Now, let's say they make that same API call in month 11 during the subscription timeframe. We will then, of course, take that, authenticate the API request, and proxy it along to the data provider, which they'll then generate the response. So again, easy authentication, and very critically, on behalf of providers, AWS Data Exchange for APIs is managing subscriptions and entitlements and that authentication in accordance with subscription terms. So there's no more need as a data provider to, for example, issue API keys and revoke access when a contract is up. We handle that on the data provider's behalf. And so as a data provider, to get a product on the AWS Data Exchange catalog that contains an API, all you have to do is connect your API to the AWS Data Exchange managed endpoint, and you can do that in a matter of minutes. Seen it done multiple times. It's pretty quick. And by the way, this catalog, if you just type in AWS Data Exchange and click on the data exchange filter and then API filter in the catalog, you can see all of these products. So again, as a data provider, you bring your own API, hook it up to the AWS Data Exchange managed endpoint, and then you can package that API in a data set, ultimately in a product, and then post it on the AWS Data Exchange catalog. So flipping back to the subscriber persona, let's say, for example, I as a subscriber have taken a subscription to the AWS Data Exchange test product or one of IMDb's products that's up there. What will end up happening is that once I've subscribed, I will see on the API asset detail page all the integration notes and information necessary to make that API call. And again, we already went through this, but I'll repeat it again because I just think it's super cool. The fact that you can authenticate in using your AWS credentials or the AWS SDK to make calls to these third-party APIs is really neat. So once you've made that API call, an additional great feature is that you can use all of the tools that you've come to expect from AWS when it comes to managing subscriptions through the AWS Data Exchange console and governing them across your org. So that could be using IAM, that could be using CloudTrail, that could be using AWS License Manager. So again, you're able to make these API calls the same way you would call any other AWS API, and you can govern their access across your organization. So again, going back to some of those pain points that we talked about earlier. Now, if you're a data subscriber, you can browse the AWS Data Exchange catalog of products and see a variety of APIs from different providers. In terms of managing subscriptions across various vendors, you can easily manage and govern them using AWS tools that you are used to, whether that's, again, License Manager or IAM. And last but certainly not least, these APIs should be easier to use. And the reason they should be one of the reasons they should be easier to use is that you'll be able to leverage supported AWS SDKs to make API calls using your AWS credentials. And on the provider side, you can now reach millions of AWS customers by publishing your products on the AWS Data Exchange catalog. You can leverage the automated subscription and entitlement management that AWS Data Exchange offers. And again, we do that in accordance with subscription terms, so that's really neat. No longer need to issue and revoke API keys based on subscription terms. And last but certainly not least, by having your APIs on AWS Data Exchange for APIs, you are making them easier to use for your customers. So overall, we think it's a win-win for data providers and data subscribers. Now, let's take a step back. Claire showed you this slide a little bit earlier. So AWS Data Exchange, when we first launched, supported S3 objects. So again, you could license S3 objects to data subscribers. We recently announced the preview of AWS Data Exchange for Amazon Redshift, where you could now license the ability to query tables through Amazon Redshift data shares. And now we are supporting the ability to request data from third-party API vendors through AWS Data Exchange. So whether it's looking at a file of historical weather trends or querying tables of live sales data or requesting a stock price with a synchronous request response API call, AWS Data Exchange has you covered. Can't wait to see what all of our customers are going to do with this great new feature. All right, now let's see AWS Data Exchange for APIs in action. We're going to show a quick demo by our friends at Rearc. Rearc was founded in 2016 to empower engineers with the best tools possible to make an impact in their industry. They have more than 400 products on the AWS Data Exchange catalog. Many of them are low cost or free products. Strongly encourage you to check them out. They're a lot of fun to use. And then last but not least, Rearc is an AWS advanced consulting partner. So again, excited to show you the demo that they've put together.
Hi, I'm Dara Karabi, a senior engineer at Rearc. At Rearc, we're very excited about AWS Data Exchange for APIs. Just to start with a little about ourselves, Rearc is a boutique cloud software and services company. We're an advanced APN partner, and we've been data provider partners with the AWS Data Exchange since its inception. We provide data sourcing and licensing, as well as solutions based on data through the Data Exchange. And at this point, we have over 440 different public products listed on the Data Exchange. While working with clients, we found that we could unlock a lot of value by providing some of our data products and solutions as APIs. With AWS Data Exchange for APIs, we can do this directly through ADX. There are a lot of benefits with this approach. We don't have to worry about adding or removing permissions for subscribers when their subscriptions start or end, since that's managed through ADX. We can centralize all our pricing and contracting through ADX, and our analytics for API products are available right alongside our flat file products. To demonstrate this functionality, we've created an API product that uses a machine learning model called ResNet that looks at an image and tells us what animals might be present in that image. Here's what this product looks like from the data subscriber's point of view. One nice thing is that it shows up right alongside their other S3-based data exchange products. The biggest difference is that once you drill down into the data sets and revisions contained in the product, instead of seeing a list of assets that you can download or export to S3, you'll find an API specification along with integration information that can be used to call the API. Subscribers can call this API through the AWS CLI, through the SDK for their favorite programming language, or just by sending a bare HTTP request to the API endpoint secured with AWS SIG v4. We've put together a little web app to show this API product in action. You give it a link to an image, and it tells you what animals it might classify in that image. This first one is of a cat, and it looks like it's classified it as a tabby cat. I would say that's right on the money there. Let's try another. This next one is of a penguin. Let's see what ResNet thinks of this. It looks like it's 78% sure that that's a king penguin. This last one is of a tropical fish, and it looks like the API has classified it as a rock beauty. Pulling back the curtain a little bit, this is a Vue.js web application that is running on Noop, Rearc's platform for deploying and monitoring cloud applications and beyond. We can actually take a look at the source code that runs when a new image link is submitted. You can see that it calls the endpoint that was provided in the product details and fills in the image URL that was provided by the user in the web form. There are also headers for the asset, dataset, and revision of the API, which are provided in the dataset details. The request is signed using AWS SIG v4 and sent out, and the response is formatted, resulting in the page you see here. At Rearc, we're very excited about all of the new possibilities that AWS Data Exchange for APIs unlocks, and we'll be exploring it much more deeply in the coming months. If you're interested in getting in touch, our email is data@rearc.io. As a final note, the API product you saw today, PyTorch ResNet Image Recognition, is now available as a free public product on the AWS Data Exchange. So feel free to check it out. Thanks so much, and we hope you have a fantastic reInvent.
All right, that was pretty fun to watch. Again, encourage you to go check out the catalog, check out some of the products from Rearc. A lot of really cool ones there. All right, so just to sum up on AWS Data Exchange for APIs, we really built this to reduce time to value for customers. We wanted to take care of a bunch of the undifferentiated heavy lifting to make life easier for our data providers and our data subscribers. And again, we have a bunch of great data providers on the catalog today. Strongly encourage you to go check it out. With that, it's my privilege to hand it over to Gopal Ramamurthy, VP of Analytics and Global Data Management at Bayer Medical.
Thank you, Rick. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for spending your valuable time with us today. I will be, taking you through Bayer Medical's journey with the Amazon Data Exchange for API. We have, pretty cool demo to, go through just to, make it more practical. So first, let me, start with who's Bayer. So Bayer Medical is the largest company in the global healthcare ecosystem, 100% focused on, respiratory care products. We have, variety of product lines. Our legacy dates back to 60 plus years, 27,000 plus products. And our product line actually spans across different franchise, all the way from ventilation, which is one of our popular product line, which came very, very handy and crucial during pandemic last year, saved thousands and thousands of lives, which we are very proud of, to call that out in any stage. And we also have 2 other franchises that are solely focused on airway management and operative care, more around surgery and intensive care unit procedures. Last but not least, respiratory, diagnostics products. This is more focused on the medical devices that actually is used to diagnose lung related issues, help sports professionals to improve their performance and whatnot. So really, I would say like an end-to-end continuum of respiratory care products. So Wire Medical formed with mergers and acquisitions of multiple key assets, which actually brings in with a lot of complexity with data. When you have mergers and acquisitions, you get systems from different organizations. We are no short of data complexity. We have 13 plus ERPs. We have multiple reporting applications. You name it, we probably have that complexity. So we had to step back and look at how we want to handle this complexity. So we actually looked at it more from a solution that can actually scale up or down depending upon situation. One good example is our cloud architecture scaled really up during pandemic last year, and then when it gets to norm this year, we were able to scale down with Amazon's capabilities. So we built 3 key applications using our data ecosystem. Insight, our data and analytics platform, Iris, which is our clinical data platform, and then MData, which is our master data management application. So all these 3 implications are more focused on corporate, how do we run the business, day-to-day activities, that kind of information. Insight, it's comprised of the different components you're seeing on the screen, and the end output comes out of QuickSight, which is our analytics platform. And then we also have SageMaker that's generating AI and machine learning models. And MData is very crucial for master data management. As you can imagine, when you have multiple ERPs and CRM systems, the data complexity goes through the roof. So we had to build our own custom master data management platform. We used basically AWS cloud native components to build this platform. And in this process, to curate our customer data, we had to use external information. So we used an external data provider who actually helped us to curate our customer data information. In this case, we built a data pipeline directly with the external vendor to bring the information in, curate our customer data, certify our golden record, and started using that information. Then later on, as we mature in the analytics journey, we got into a spot where we wanted to kind of expand the usage into more of, I would say, AI and ML scenarios where we want to increase our market growth, market presence for Wire Medical. So we had to look at external data. How would we actually procure this information? So we looked at data exchange, which actually Ricky went through before. I mean, it's just people who love data. It's like a kid in a candy shop, right? You just have variety of information that you can actually look at. And we actually picked 2 key vendors to actually improve our information. So now you have built 2 different data pipelines, one hitting your exchange, another one hitting directly with vendors. And we tasted the success. Our business stakeholders started wanted more information in a similar fashion to actually for different scenarios within our business. So when you have ever-increasing demand, which I want to talk through, ever-increasing demand, you naturally run into a situation where you have the excitement that you want to, not let down from your business. At the same time, you want to make sure your IT systems are not too complex, where you have to, spend, hours and hours to secure the pipeline. As you're on cloud, your number 1 priority is always security, and you want to make sure, your engineering team is not spending a lot of time to actually, build the pipeline for different scenarios and different vendors. You're going to, bring into your data ecosystem. And also, it also puts more overhead on your total cost of ownership when it comes to the sustainment of your data ecosystem. how do we solve this problem? I mean, I can probably go on and on with a few more, but just to put some context, these three big scenarios is what we are going to talk through today. That's when AWS Data Exchange for APIs came into rescue. And basically, they talked through about the concept, how we are actually able to have a unified data pipeline that can actually bring all this external data together. It sounded like kind of a sales pitch, but actually it is true, and which you will see in action when we do the demo today. Just to put a little bit more context there, so we actually took two big scenarios that is impactful wire. One is on the customer data cleansing side of the house, which is very important. Customer first, pretty much for any organization. For us, more than ever, because we are, dealing with patients here. And then the second part is how do we actually, sustain our demand and then, be on time for our customers. So those two areas, as I mentioned before, one, we dealt with an external vendor where we had to build a pipeline. Another one, where we are actually coming through data exchange, where it's more like a file published in S3, and then we are trying to bring it in. So we want to basically bring these together and build a framework that is more unified in terms of your security and reduce engineering time. All these benefits were right in front of our eyes, so we wanted to go ahead and explore that. So just to give some context around the demonstration, you will see we're going to talk about two key scenarios which I mentioned: customer data management. Here we are actually we partnered with People Data Labs. People Data Labs has rich data when it comes to personal information. They have close to 2.5 billion personal data, and then about 2.5 million different company profile information stored in their data ecosystem. So we actually did a POC with People Data Labs to use their API to actually curate our customer data information. And then the second scenario you will see is pretty cutting edge for us, at least Wire as a company, Weather Trends. We have products that actually has a lot of seasonality to it. To name a few, airway management and operative care products. They typically spike during flu season. And so that actually has a direct correlation with your weather information. That's where Weather Trends came in handy, where they have rich proprietary weather information coupled with, based on your product, they actually profile it and give you kind of a demand signal that you can actually use it in two fashions. They would give you like a short term and a long term. So the long term is basically to have a mature supply chain. The short term is basically helps you to have the right inventory strategy to store your products in different DCs so that you don't have the overstocking or understocking situation. Again, when you're talking about serving up our patients here, so we want it to be as precise as possible. So those are the two scenarios which you will actually see that in the demonstration that's coming up.
Welcome everyone. In today's demo, we will cover two use cases of data integration with API products on Data Exchange. Our first use case is Wire's Customer Master Data Management Platform and its integration with People Data Labs data. Our second use case is Demand Predictive Planning and its integration with Weather Trends external data. Wire's data management platform provides a single source of truth for customers, materials, and vendors' data across Wire. For this demo, we will only focus on the Customer Master Data Management Platform. This platform manages onboarding, offboarding of customers and their related information such as credit, pricing model, billing, and shipping locations. Wire's Master Data Management Platform is built using AWS Cloud Native Serverless Architecture. Here is a quick view of MDM platform. Click on, here we're going to search for the customer's information. For this specific example, we would look at Lincare, one of the hospitals that Wire does business with. As you see, we have the customer's information, their name, street, address, and other information. Today, Wire's Master Data Management Platform integrates with a third-party data provider for enriching the customer's information. This platform authenticates with the vendor's preferred security model. Now we will see a demo of how AWS Data Exchange provides a unified data integration experience, and we can use Sec4 credentials, which makes it easy to authenticate across different API providers. Now log in into the AWS console, and as you look at the data exchange, we can see the different subscriptions that we have subscribed to. For the purpose of this demo, I have already subscribed to the specific product, People Data Labs. As you click on Entitled Data, you can look at the different products that you have subscribed to. Click on the specific external data provider's product and the specific revision. Here, you can view the API asset information. Click on the specific API to drill more into the details of the API. Here is the asset overview, which provides the asset ID, the revision ID, the dataset ID, which is essential for making an API call to the external data. The DX also provides the open API specification for the third-party data. And here is the base URL that you can use to invoke the API and the AWS CLI command. For the purpose of this example, we would do a demo using Postman, an application used for API testing. As you can see, here is your endpoint for the DX API. The header information has the asset ID, dataset ID, revision ID, and the URI. And here is your authentication Sec4 credentials, which has information about your access key, secret key, and your session token. Now let's make an API call. As you see, here is the enriched company information for the Lincare Hospital. And this information is leveraged by different business functions such as finance, supply chain, and customer service within Wire. Now let's move on to our second use case, which is the Demand Predictive Planning Platform. Demand Predictive Planning Platform predicts the forecast for Wire's product lines. This platform uses Wire's sales history and weather trend data and external data providers' data to improve the forecast over time. Demand Predictive Planning is an AI ML platform built using SageMaker. Here is a sample data of our demand predictive dashboard. As you can see, here is the demand for the specific certain zip codes over a period of time. Currently, Demand Predictive Platform integrates with weather trends data and gets a file-based data feed using DX. Now we will see how DX helps us extract the data in real time. You can see the weather trends product that's already been subscribed by us. You can navigate to the specific revision that you are interested in. The revision overview gives information about the revision, and your asset information can be found right below it. Here is the API that we are interested in getting the weather data. Click on this API to view more information about the asset, the Open API specification, and details about the base URI and the code structure to invoke this API using AWS CLI or your preferred API testing tool. For the purpose of this demo, we will still use Postman to make an API call. And here is the Weather Trends API. As you can see, both People Data Labs and Weather Trends uses a single URL to access the data provider. And here is your asset ID, dataset ID, and revision ID, which changes per data provider. Now let's make an API call. And here is the weather information and the demand from this weather information helps us generate alternate forecasts to improve forecast accuracy, customer service level, and effective inventory management. To conclude, AWS Data Exchange simplifies the process of renewal and subscription to external data provider, provides a unified and consistent development experience, abstracts the security complexity, and reduces the software development time. Using this data helps us run our business effectively. Thank you.
I hope that demo actually gave an additional context to what I was trying to explain. Obviously, that wasn't my voice. Hope everybody knows that. So Shiva Manikam, who's actually our EA, sitting in the front row, helped us. Thank you, Shiva, for that. Just to wrap up, from our standpoint, we're definitely looking at some of the benefits that will yield from AWS Data Exchange with APIs. I talked about like how we can actually have a unified framework, more from the technology standpoint, but what is the bottom line for the company standpoint, right? Like we can actually have, Rick mentioned about, exciting our sourcing team not to have like multiple contracts they have to maintain. Now everything comes through, our AWS Marketplace, one bill, and that's pretty much what all they have to deal with. That is definitely a huge advantage for us in terms of, maintenance of a contract and subscription. And another big benefit is actually, reduction in engineering time, because we have a pipeline of 18 plus, external data integration that is actually, and imagine building 18 more pipelines, which is not going to be, cost effective, number one. Number two is it's going to take more time, which doesn't yield the benefit for our business stakeholders on time. So there is, quite a bit of, financial benefit for us, which we are actually looking forward to. And more importantly, the bottom line is the information, how is it going to impact our business to take the right decision so that, they can help Wire grow, as well as, get the products to our customers on time in the right location and excite our customers. It's all about, in the end, how we can better serve our customers. Overall, I think this journey, which we jumped on with Amazon Data Exchange for API, we're excited, and we're hoping to actually get to a better place than where we are. And our track record tells us we can definitely do it, because we have done a lot of revolutionary stuff here at Wire in the past, and this is another one challenge we are taking on, and we're confident to get it through. Hopefully, this gave better context for whatever business challenge you're up to solve in your own industry. And you can take this experience from Wire and use it in your own industry and solve the business challenges. Really appreciate everybody's time today, for joining us and listening to about AWS Data Exchange with API, Wire's journey. I mean, I know this 5:45 is 6:45 p.m. here in Pacific. People are better off partying, but you decided to join us and listen in. Really appreciate your time for that. Back to Claire.
So just 1 minute more. Thank you so much, Gopal. We know that it's best told the benefits of the services through the voices of our customers. So thank you so much for doing that for us today, Gopal. A couple quick things for those of you still in the audience. Learn more about AWS Data Exchange. Here is the link to the page where you can learn more, as well as the link to the data products, the API-based data products in the AWS Data Exchange catalog. Take a moment there. And then also, quick plug for the other AWS Marketplace sessions that are here at re:Invent. We have several sessions going on about broader AWS Marketplace. We also have an exhibition down in the Sands Expo Hall. So there is an AWS Marketplace pavilion, booth. You can come up, staffed with AWS Marketplace and AWS Data Exchange team during the week, so that you can come and ask us any questions you have and learn more. So thank you so much. Gopal mentioned it. Thank you so much. Late session. We appreciate you all being here and learning about this. And finally, just please complete the session survey, as with all the other sessions at re:Invent. So thank you all so much, and hope you have a great evening.